there was a time in this country when they talk about yesteryear and the American glory and stuff, where things were going relatively well, at least on the domestic front. Now, look, in foreign policy, the CIA was still doing coups and creating messes all over Latin America, Africa, Middle East, et cetera, right? But between 1940 and 1980, we didn't have any banking collapses, major banking collapses. Isn't that amazing? We're so used to the banks, oh, it's a giant collapse, fraud, this, that, and the other thing. For 40, actually, it's 50 years when you actually go all the way back to when they did the regulation to when the collapses began again, right? Where there were no major banking collapses. And productivity was going up, and this is my favorite chart, you know, I've shown it all. Productivity was going up, and so were American wages. They were going up at the same exact rate, right? And in about 1978, they ran into a brick wall. So and in that time, you know, Ralph Nader got us to get seatbelts, saved millions of lives, seatbelts in cars, right? One of the most underrated things there is. Nader got Nixon to pass the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency. Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing.
Got him to Nixon passed OSHA to protect workers in their workplace. Yeah. Why?
Wow.
Because there was so much pressure from liberals to actually look out for the American citizens.
There was some strength there.
Yeah. It was real. We actually had a government that represented us, with all of its warts and downsides, et cetera. But on the domestic front, they did a pretty decent job. My God, I was at the Lyndon Johnson Presidential Museum. When Lyndon Johnson became president, we still, I mean, that seems like relatively recent. We didn't have electricity throughout the country.
Right,
So
Tennessee.
Tennessee Valley Authority, I mean, that began the process
Yes.
and stuff, but it had not been completed. And there were rural parts of Texas where there was no grid. They didn't have electricity. Their kids couldn't go to school. They had no opportunity. Lyndon Johnson had a ton of downsides, but he wanted to help those guys in rural Texas. And he said, God damn it, I want this kid to have an opportunity, okay? He had an upside, and that was the upside. That was when we had politicians through all their ups and downs that generally looked out for us on the domestic front, okay? So yes, there was a better time, right? And even in the 1990s, the Bill Clinton is in large part a corporatist. He did a lot of positive things, but in the end, he did some
negative.
Yeah, great damage at the very end, right? Repealing Glass-Steagall, which led to the banking collapses, the Commodity Futures Act, that led to the derivatives gambling, that led to the collapse of the economy, et cetera, right? And they deregulated, which, by the way, on Clinton's watch, they deregulated the media, which allowed these giant conglomerates to take over and to monopolize the media, right? But the effects of that were felt later. In the 1990s, I remember being in the news department in Miami with Ben. And every day I'd pick up, back then it was the USA Today, okay? I'd pick up the USA Today and I'd be like, oh, look, they don't suck balls, okay?
Yeah.
Like, it was good news. Teen pregnancy down, poverty down, all these things, right? And then in 2000, thanks to Roger Ailes and Fox News and the way that they hoodwinked the American people into making Bush president when he didn't win the vote, popular vote, or the electoral vote if he did a full recount of Florida. We started down this path. And again, to be fair, it started under Clinton, actually, okay? But Bush accelerated it. And now, the reason for it is, it began in 76 and 78 when they said corporations have First Amendment rights and they can spend money in politics. That's what Nader points to, that's what, like, if you study it, and my God, I've studied it to no end, right? I studied and studied and studied it. It all changes in 1978. Not when Reagan gets elected in 80. It changes in 78 when they pass Bellotti versus First National Bank of Boston that says, yes, corporations can spend money in politics. And Nader, unrelated to my research, told me once, and related in that I went and researched it even more after he said this. I said, what happened? How'd you run into that brick wall in the late 70s? What happened? He said, Tony Coelho. He's the Democrat in the House that convinced all the other Democrats, now we can take corporate money too. Okay, and that was the beginning of the end. Now we're close to the end of the end. When they've taken over everything, and Jimmy's right, doesn't matter if 90% of Americans agree on something. In the old days, there would be a price to pay.
Right, there isn't even a price to pay.
Yeah, like, you know, were there corrupt politicians in 1957? Of course there were, right? Were there big business interests that maybe illegally slipped them money, right? Of course there were, right? But if 90% of the people were on one side, they were going to lose the election. So they had to do it if 90% were on. They didn't want to go to World War I, right? I mean, it took a long time. But we didn't want to go to World War II. People are getting massacred, right? But it was unpopular, so they couldn't do it. Now, war is unpopular. Who cares? Who cares? Yeah. Right? Because nobody cares whether something's popular. The reason it's not the worst economic state we've ever been in. It's not the worst our foreign policy's ever been in. But it's the worst our democracy's ever been in. And so, since that has rotten to its core, and the virus has taken over Washington, until we solve that problem, there's no good news ahead. There's no light at the end of the tunnel, and we're not turning a corner. That's why all these State of the Unions, etc., are flowery bullshit. Yep. There's not going to be a magical year where all of a sudden the politicians go, oh, the way I get elected is by sucking up to the donors, but I'm not going to do that this year. Mm-hmm. And they all decide en masse to be Mr. Smith goes to Washington. That's not how it works. That's not how the system at this point is built. Mm-hmm. You got to get the money out of politics. If you don't do that, yes, it's the worst I've seen. Unfortunately, it'll get worse every year.
Yeah. Well, he did, correct me if I'm wrong, Barack Obama did not mention that.
Yeah, so that's a great point to end on, if you guys don't mind. Move On did a poll of their members, okay? So number 7 was implement Obamacare more. They had the top 7, right? And environmental issues were in there, anti-fracking, et cetera. Number 1 clearly was get money out of politics, okay? And President Obama does not do one single solitary thing to get money out of politics. The number 1 concern of progressives. But if you told his administration that, they'd be like, move on. Who gives a shit?
Right, absolutely.
Right.
And he benefits from the exact same system. I mean, he gets corporate money. So why would any politician fight back against a system that they take advantage of?
Right.
You know?
So look, as I've said before, and you guys know that I care deeply about this issue, and that's why we started Wolfpack. And if you're interested in fighting back, wolf-pack.com is the way to do it. Don't get confused. Oh, is Cenk saying this to support Wolfpack? No. I started Wolfpack because we had to solve this issue. It's the other way around. I spent another Saturday, Sunday night, 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock at night, when I was exhausted. I spent on the phone with the executive director of Wolfpack and signing pictures for members of Wolfpack, right? They wanted that, and I did that. Actually, that took over 2.5 hours. Jeez. You think I want to spend my Sunday night doing that? I wanted to watch the HBO shows. And somebody asked me in the walk in New Hampshire, hey, this seems like such a long shot. Why are you doing it? My answer is, what choice do we have? Mm-hmm. Your 2 choices are either you attempt this long shot, or you give up and you say there's no light at the end of the tunnel, it's not going to get better, and I'm consigned to it. But then I would fold up the show rather than do that. Then what's the point of doing the show and telling you about what's happening in the news if the answer is nothing good's ever going to happen, right? So the reason I brought that up, Anna, is because you talked about the politicians. You have to be careful here. So let me end on a positive note here, because yes, the federal politicians, this system is totally taken over, and you can get a lone Bernie Sanders here or Congressman Sarbanes who fights against this, doesn't take super PAC money, is a decent, honest guy, etc. Right? But on the state level, they're not corrupted yet. I mean, are there corrupt politicians to say? Of course. Did the Koch brothers take over the entire state of Kansas? Yes, they did. It was the bloody Kansas coup where they tossed out the already conservative Republicans and put in Koch Republicans, which scared the bejesus out of other Republicans in the country, by the way. Okay, state leaders. Anyway, but I was up in New Hampshire. 2 quick stories, okay, to tell you how uncorrupted some state legislators are, and how we have a hope. The hope is that the states can rescue us by calling for a convention where we pass the amendment that I think is the bullet that would change this. I mean, there's no magic bullet except that one. Yeah. If you actually got money out of politics, that is the one thing that affects everything else. That unplugs the matrix, okay? So one was from Maine. In Maine, they have public financing. You know who she is? she works at cash register. Okay, literally at her local grocery store.
Who's this?
This is a state representative in Maine.
Okay.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah, and since they have public financing, she's like, oh, so I just got to raise. I think she raised $50 from 5 people, $250. And when you do that in the public financing system, they give you $4,500, which is enough to run in a small district in Maine, right? She's not running for U.S. Congress, she's running for that district in her own state. She won. Can you imagine at the national level?
Wow.
A lady at your local Ralph's or Giant or whatever your local grocery store is, that cash register lady running and winning.
That'd be amazing.
It can't happen at the national level, but it can happen at the state level. It's if you have public financing. She just raised $250 and boom. And now that she's there, they love her. And she still works at the cash register. And her constituents come up to her and they're like, hey, Diane, hey, Kate, can you help fix this? She's like, oh, let me take a note down. And then she's like, by the way, you owe $17.28. Okay, isn't that awesome? Isn't that what democracy is supposed to be? Right? So can we convince those people to call for a convention? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, that's government by the people, for the people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the second one is in New Hampshire. Tim Smith. He's a state representative. You know how much he spent to win his seat? $300.
That's
Really?
amazing.
Isn't that amazing?
That's so amazing.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
So when you go to talk to Representative Tim Smith, and you're like, hey, you want to get money out of politics? He's like, of course I do. I only raised $300 for my last race. I want to get money out of politics. And they recognize, look, even if you go to a Republican in the state level, and we have in Indiana, Republicans introducing our resolution. Isn't that amazing? Right, at the
Yes.
national level, you never get a Republican.
No.
But at the state level, you go up to them and you think,
That's really happening?
yeah, absolutely. No, I'm telling you, go to wolf-pack.com. We got updates on it. What happened in Indiana and Iowa was one person who was like, I'm just going to call them all. Same thing happened in New York. Salim, who we recently hired, he's like, I'm going to call them all. I'm going to call all the state reps and senators. Okay, will to power. And it doesn't take money. It just takes persistence. And Salim found someone who had won their election in New York by 7 votes. Okay, and that was a vulnerable area. So he comes in. Getting money out of politics is incredibly popular in every district. We get people to call that representative. She says, okay, I'm in. And she says, okay, now here's a person who could help you. And she sets up with us with a political contact and to get the bill introduced. And then that person helps us to find Republicans who might agree for their own political reasons in New York. This is how, you never know if something's going to work unless you try it. So anyway, in Indiana, we got a Republican to do it because you asked the Republican, hey, do you think that outside donors should be able to come in and influence you by giving you a ton of money? Like, so for example, Bloomberg, should he be able to come in and give your opponent all this money to run against you and to run this anti-gun campaign? Oh, no way, right? How about George Soros? You want him to spend a lot of money in your district? And oh no, that's outrageous, that's wrong. He's right, that is outrageous, right? He goes, okay, I'll do it.
Really?
Okay, so.
But it didn't dawn on him that the Koch brothers might want to spread some money around?
But look at what the Koch brothers did in Kansas.
That's right, they screwed the regular
They
Republicans.
screwed the Republicans, and they put in their own, owned and operated Republicans.
Yeah, right.
Right? So there's hope out there, but as President Obama said, it's not easy.
Yeah.
We got to work. That's the working really hard to get it. Okay? All right. So that's my spiel, and I'm sticking with it.